The kitchen light had been on for 20 years, but no one had been home. Dalton Mercer stood at the window with a glass of whiskey he wouldn't drink, watching snow bury his 12,000 acres. December 18th, 1989, 11:47 at night. The anniversary was coming. 4 weeks to the day, his daughter stopped breathing in a ditch outside Billings while he walked away with scratches. Movement at the gate. Small. Wrong. He grabbed the maglite and walked into wind that could kill you. Found her 20 yards from the road, maybe 9 years old. Barefoot, nightgown frozen to skin the color of old piano keys. Bruises on her arms like fingerprints, one eye swollen shut. She looked up at him through the one that worked. Am I dying? He picked her up. She weighed nothing. Not today. He'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone need him, forgot how much it could hurt. He laid her on the kitchen table like she was something broken he was trying not to break worse. Her nightgown cracked when he pulled it away from her skin. Ice in the fabric, ice in her hair. He wrapped her in wool blankets from the mudroom, the kind he used for calving season when the heifers dropped early and the babies came out shaking. The kettle went on. Coffee started. His hands wouldn't stop moving because if they stopped, he'd have to think about what he was doing and why he hadn't called anyone. She woke up fighting, came off the table wild, blankets tangling her legs, one arm swinging at his face. He caught her wrist. Careful, too many bruises already. And she made a sound like a trapped animal. Easy, easy now. She bolted for the door. He got there first, not blocking exactly, just standing between her and 20 below. You'll die out there. And she stopped, cornered animal eyes. The one that wasn't swollen, darting between him and the door and the windows like she was counting exits. He'd seen that look on horses after they'd been beaten. I ain't gonna hurt you. He stepped back, hands up. But I ain't letting you freeze neither. She stood there shaking, not from cold anymore. Sit, he said, not mean, just firm. I'll make you something warm. She sat, didn't take her eyes off him. He made weak tea with too much honey, the way his wife used to make it for Sarah when she was small and sick. Pushed the cup across the table. The girl didn't touch it until he turned his back to get the first aid kit from under the sink. The kit was old, dust on the plastic case, hadn't opened it since... He set it on the table. Let me see your feet. She pulled them up under her, defensive. They're frostbit, he said. Gonna lose toes if we don't get them warm. She didn't move. He sighed, pulled out a chair, sat down slow, eye level with her now. I know you got no reason to trust me, but those feet need tending, and I'm all you got right now. Something in his voice, the tiredness maybe, or the truth of it, made her uncurl. She put her feet on the chair between them. Purple toes, blisters, cuts from running barefoot God knows how far. He worked quiet, antibiotic cream, gauze, medical tape yellow with age. She flinched every time he touched her, but she didn't pull away. The bruises on her arms weren't new, some yellow-green, some fresh purple. Pattern to them. Handprints. Who did this to you? She looked at the tea. All right. He finished wrapping her left foot. You don't gotta say. Are you gonna call someone? Her voice was smaller than she was. Who would I call? The police or whoever? He looked at her, really looked. Blonde hair matted with ice. Missing 2 teeth, one from the swelling, one just gone. Undersized for whatever age she was. If he called the sheriff, they'd call the state. And the state would put her somewhere, and he'd seen enough of the world to know that somewhere wasn't always better than nowhere. Roads are closed, he said. Storm's got another day in it. True enough, also a lie. The roads might open by morning if the plows ran. She watched him like she was trying to figure out which parts were truth and which were him deciding. You hungry? She nodded. He made eggs and toast and bacon, because it was simple and he could do it without thinking. She ate like she was being timed. Stuffed half a piece of toast in her mouth, pocketed 2 strips of bacon in her lap when she thought he wasn't looking. He said nothing. Poured her more milk. When she was done, she sat there with her hands in her lap, staring at the empty plate. Thank you, she said, automatic, scared. For what? For not leaving me out there. And he looked at his coffee. Wasn't much choice in it. The clock over the stove said 3:15. Too late to be awake. Too early to call it morning. He stood. Come on, I'll show you where you can sleep. He led her down the hall past 6 closed doors to the one at the end. His hand stopped on the knob. Hadn't touched this door in 18 years. Sometimes he stood in the hallway at night and looked at it like it might open on its own and she'd be there, 16 and alive, and asking what was for breakfast. He unlocked it. The door swung in on a room full of dust and frozen time. Pink wallpaper, posters of bands from 1971. A teddy bear on the bed with button eyes. Everything exactly where Sarah left it, the morning she got in the car with him and never came home. The girl stood in the doorway, not entering. Did someone die? His throat closed. Long time ago. Who? My daughter. The girl looked at the room, then at him. I'm sorry. Yeah. He couldn't get more words out than that. He backed into the hallway. Bathroom's across the hall. There's clothes in the dresser if you need them. He pulled the door half closed and walked away before she could see his face doing things he couldn't control. In the hallway, he stopped, leaned against the wall, put his hand over his mouth. For the first time in 18 years, that room had a living person in it. He didn't know if that was mercy or punishment. Behind him, he heard the bed springs creak, heard her crying, quiet, trying not to be heard. He stood there listening, one hand flat on the wall, like he was holding the house up or it was holding him. The kitchen light was still on, one yellow eye in all that darkness. He'd left it on every night for 2 decades. Not for Sarah, she was gone, but because turning it off felt like admitting no one was coming home. Now someone had. He pushed off the wall and walked to his room without turning any lights off. Behind closed doors, he sat on the edge of his bed in the dark and tried to remember how to breathe around the feeling in his chest that wasn't quite pain and wasn't quite hope and scared him worse than either one alone. By the 3rd day, she'd stopped sleeping in her clothes. By the 4th, he'd started leaving the hallway light on. The storm kept on. Day 2, day 3, roads still closed. The weather service said another system coming behind this one. Dalton listened to the radio at 5 a.m. while the coffee brewed and tried not to think about how trapped felt different when there was someone else in the house. She appeared in the kitchen doorway at 5:30, silent as a ghost, barefoot, wearing one of Sarah's old nightgowns from the dresser. Too big on her. She stood there, watching him measure coffee grounds like he was doing surgery. He poured her a cup without asking, added milk until it was almost white, just a shadow of coffee in it, the way Sarah used to take it when she was small. Slid it across the table. The girl wrapped both hands around the mug and sipped. Her face did something, not quite a wince, not quite a grimace. "It's good," she said. He looked at her over his own cup. Liar. The corner of her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close enough that he felt something crack in his chest. Next morning, he made a hot chocolate instead. Didn't say anything about it, just set it in front of her and went back to his coffee. She drank it down to the marshmallow sediment at the bottom. A routine started to form. The way ice forms on a stock tank, slow, overnight, inevitable. He cooked, she watched. Then she started setting the table without being asked. 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 napkins folded the way his mother used to fold them, corners tucked just so. He didn't ask where she learned that. 3rd morning, he noticed she took 3 pieces of bacon, ate one, wrapped 2 in her napkin, tucked them in the nightgown pocket when she thought he wasn't looking. His first instinct was to say something. "There's plenty, you don't gotta hide it." But he bit it back. She had her reasons. Reasons that probably included people who didn't let her have seconds, or locked the cabinets, or made her earn food like it was a privilege instead of a right. That afternoon, while she was in the bathroom, he went upstairs and left a box of granola bars on her nightstand. Didn't mention it at dinner. Next morning, the box was open, 1 bar missing, the rest lined up neat as soldiers on the dresser. She came down and turned on the kitchen light before he even got out of bed. He heard the click from his room, that little brass chain rattling. When he came down, she was sitting at the table in the half-dark, just the one light overhead, hands folded like she was waiting for permission to exist. "You're up early," he said. "I didn't know if I was supposed to." "You're supposed to do whatever you want." She looked at him like she was trying to figure out if that was a test. He poured the coffee. She drank her hot chocolate. Outside, the wind threw snow at the windows and the world stayed white and small. Day 4, he needed to check the cattle. They'd be fine. He'd moved them to the winter pasture with good windbreak. But sitting in the house too long made him feel like the walls were getting closer together. He pulled on his Carhartt, stomped into his sorrels. "I gotta go to the barn." She looked up from the TV. Family Matters, canned laughter filling up the living room. "Can I come?" He stopped with one arm in his coat. Hadn't expected that. "If you want." In the mudroom, he dug through the pile of old boots until he found Sarah's from high school, size 6. Too big for the girl, but closer than his 12s. She jammed her bandaged feet in them, tied the laces in double knots. "Coat," he said. There was only one spare, his old work Carhartt from 10 years ago, before he got too broad in the shoulders for it. He held it up. It swallowed her. Sleeves past her hands, hem to her knees. She looked like a kid playing dress-up. "You look ridiculous," he said. "You look old," she shot back. He almost smiled. Almost. They stepped out into knee-deep snow. The wind had died down, but the cold was the kind that got inside your lungs and made them ache. She took 2 steps and sank up to her thighs. "Oh," he pulled her out. She tried again, more careful, following in his footprints, made it 6 steps before she hit a drift and went down hard, disappearing into white powder. He turned back, ready to haul her out again, but she was already sitting up, covered head to toe in snow. And she was laughing, not polite laughter, not nervous laughter. Real laughter, the kind that comes out in bursts you can't control. She fell back into the snow and made an angel, arms and legs going, and the sound of her laughing carried across the white fields like something he hadn't heard in so long he'd forgotten what it was called. Joy, that's what it was called. He stood there like an idiot, watching her, and felt his face do something it hadn't done in 2 decades. He almost smiled. Not quite, but almost. He pulled her up. She was still grinning, snow in her hair, on her eyelashes. They made it to the barn. Inside was a different world, warm from the cattle's body heat, smell of hay and manure, and something old and safe. The cows lowed soft, heads turning to watch them. She stopped in the doorway, suddenly small again, suddenly scared. "They won't hurt you," he said. "Big as they are, they're gentle." And he showed her how to fill the trough, how to break the ice on the water tank with a steel bar. Let her scatter hay while he checked hooves and udders. One of the heifers had a calf born 2 days ago, wobbly-legged and curious. The girl knelt in the straw, mittened hand out, and the calf came over and sniffed. "Can I touch him?" Her, and yeah. She ran her hand down the calf's neck, careful, reverent. The calf pushed into her palm. She looked up at Dalton with something on her face he couldn't name, something like wonder. "What's her name?" "Don't name 'em. Makes it harder when—" He stopped. She was 9. She didn't need to hear about the slaughterhouse yet. "When they leave, can I name her anyway? Just for me?" He looked at the calf, then at her. "I reckon." Clover," she said immediately, like she'd been thinking about it. "That's a good name." They stayed in the barn until his hands started going numb, even in the gloves. Walking back, the snow had crusted over, easier to walk on. She was watching her feet, concentrating. When she hit an icy patch and her legs went out, she grabbed his hand without thinking. He steadied her. She looked up, realized what she'd done, started to let go. He held on, not tight, just enough. They walked the rest of the way like that, her small mittened hand in his gloved one, neither of them saying anything about it. When they got to the porch, she let go, and he pretended he didn't notice. Pretended his hand didn't feel empty after. That evening, after dinner, canned stew, nothing special, but she ate 2 bowls. She asked, "What's your daughter's name?" He was at the sink, washing dishes. His hands stopped. "Sarah." "Where is she?" "Died, 18 years back." "How?" He couldn't turn around. Kept his eyes on the soapy water. "Car accident." "Were you there?" His hands tightened on the plate. "Yeah." She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "Don't apologize for asking." He made himself turn around. Look at her. "You got it right." She nodded, but she looked like she'd broken something she couldn't fix. He dried his hands, walked to the cabinet, pulled down the whiskey, poured 2 fingers in a glass, stood there looking at it the way he did every night. Stood there not drinking it the way he did every night. She watched him from the table. He poured it down the sink. "I'm gonna turn in," he said. "You need anything? I'm upstairs. First door on the left." In bed, in the dark, he listened to the house, heard her moving around downstairs, heard her come up the stairs, slow, testing each step, heard her pause outside Sarah's door, her door now, he supposed, heard the door open, close, silence. He stared at the ceiling and tried to remember if you could save someone just by being there, tried to remember if that counted as living or if it was just another way to wait for dying. Outside his door, floorboards creaked, small footsteps. He held his breath. She was standing outside Sarah's door. He could hear her breathing. Then a different sound, the doorknob rattling. Her hand on it, not turning, just holding. After a minute, she went back inside. He lay there in the dark, knowing she was in that room surrounded by his daughter's things, knowing she was probably crying, knowing there wasn't a goddamn thing he could do about it, except keep the lights on, and keep her fed, and hope that was enough. Down the hall, he heard her crying, quiet, trying not to be heard. He got up, stood in the hallway outside her door with his hand raised to knock. Stood there for a full minute, trying to figure out what he'd say, came up with nothing. He went back to bed, but he left the hallway light on. She told him her name on Christmas Eve, 8 days after he found her, like it was a present. Christmas Eve morning came in cold and clear. The storm finally broke overnight, and when Dalton came downstairs, the light through the windows was blinding. Sun on new snow, the kind of brightness that made your eyes water. He stood at the kitchen window with his first cup of coffee and looked at a world that was white and clean and completely impassable. The drifts against the barn were 6 feet high, roads still closed. He'd heard it on the radio. Another day, maybe 2. He found her in the living room, sitting cross-legged in front of the TV in one of Sarah's old sweatshirts. On the screen, a family in matching pajamas opened presents around a tree the size of a truck. Canned laughter, hugs, a golden retriever with a bow on its head. She watched it like she was studying something for a test. "You want breakfast?" he asked. She didn't look away from the screen. "Do you do Christmas?" He stood in the doorway with his empty coffee cup. "Used to. Can we?" The question sat between them like something living. He looked at the TV, at the fake family with their fake problems and their fake tree, and tried to remember the last time he'd put lights up, or bought a present, or did any of the things Sarah used to make him do. 1901. 20 years of December's just gone, unmarked, unnoticed. Ain't got decorations or nothing. That's okay. She looked at him now, and her face was doing something hopeful and scared at the same time. "We don't need stuff." He didn't know what to say to that, so he went to make pancakes. Around noon, he heard the snowmobile before he saw it. Earl came up the drive on his old Arctic cat, pulling a sled with supplies: bread, milk, kerosene, mail from town. Dalton met him at the door. "Merry Christmas Eve," Earl said, stomping snow off his boots. "Brought your groceries." "Didn't order groceries. Store sent 'em anyway. Said you got a kid here now. Figured you'd need milk that wasn't 3 weeks old." Earl's dark eyes flicked past Dalton to where the girl was peeking around the corner. "That her?" "Yeah." Earl nodded once, didn't ask questions. That was one of the things Dalton had always liked about him. 40 years of friendship built on not asking questions. They unloaded the sled in silence. When they were done, Earl paused in the kitchen, looking around like he was seeing it different. His eyes landed on the coat hook by the door, Sarah's pink winter coat, still hanging there. 20 years of dust on it, color faded from sun through the window, fabric stiff with age. Dalton saw Earl looking and felt something tighten in his chest. "Boy," Earl said quietly. "Can I?" "Yeah," Dalton said, before Earl finished. "Yeah, you can." Earl walked over slow, lifted the coat off the hook like it was made of glass, folded it. Careful, the way you fold a flag at a funeral. Dalton watched and couldn't breathe right. "Where's the cedar chest?" Earl asked. "Attic, top of the stairs." Earl took the coat and disappeared. Dalton stood there staring at the empty hook. Just an antler tine screwed into wood. Nothing special about it, but he'd seen it with that pink coat on it every single day for 18 years. Shrine to a ghost. Proof she'd existed. Proof he'd failed her. The girl came into the kitchen behind him. She was wearing the oversized Carhartt, the brown one that swallowed her. "I can hang that up for you," Dalton heard himself say. She shrugged out of it. He took it from her, heavy canvas, still cold from the barn that morning, and hung it on the hook. The same hook, Sarah's hook. It looked wrong. Too big, too brown, too alive. Earl came back down, gave Dalton a long look. "Storms pass, boy." Dalton's throat was doing things. He nodded once. Earl gripped his shoulder, squeezed. "She's a good kid. I can see it." "Yeah." "You're doing right by her." Dalton didn't answer. Didn't know if that was true. Earl left on his snowmobile, and Dalton stood at the window watching him disappear into white. Behind him, the girl was quiet. "Whose coat was that?" she asked finally. "The pink one." "Sarah's." "Why'd he take it away?" Dalton turned to look at her. She was standing by the table, small and worried, like she'd done something wrong. "Because you need that hook now," he said. "And she don't." The girl looked at the coat hook, at her too big coat hanging there, looked back at him. "Is that okay? That I'm using her stuff?" "Yeah," he said, and meant it for the first time. "Yeah, it is." That evening, he did something he hadn't done in years. Went outside and found a branch that had come down in the storm. Juniper, about 3 feet long, still had some green on it. He brought it in, stuck it in an old coffee can with some rocks to hold it upright, set it on the table. She stared at it. "It's not much," he said. "It's perfect." She disappeared upstairs and came back with aluminum foil from the kitchen drawer, tore it into strips, twisted them into shapes, stars, sort of, if you squinted, hung them on the branches with thread she found in Sarah's sewing kit. They didn't say much while she worked. He sat at the table watching her concentrate, tongue between her teeth, fingers careful with the foil. When she was done, the little tree looked ridiculous and beautiful and nothing like the one on TV. "There," she said, stepping back to admire it. First Christmas tree in his house in 20 years. For dinner, he made steak, good ones from the freezer, saved from a steer he'd butchered in October, and mashed potatoes with too much butter and corn from a can. She ate like every meal might be her last, but slower now, not hoarding. Progress, he thought. Small, but there. After, they sat in the living room. He'd built a fire, first one all winter, and she curled up on the couch in Sarah's old quilt. He took the chair by the window, coffee in hand, and they watched the flames for a while, without talking. "My name's Jolene," she said into the quiet. "But people call me Joey." He looked over at her. She was staring at the fire, not at him. Joey, he repeated. That's a good name. My mom named me after a song. Don't remember which one. Dolly Parton, he said. Jolene. About a woman asking another woman not to take her man. That's dumb, Joey said. Yeah, it is. Silence again, comfortable this time. I ran away, she said. He'd figured as much. Uh-huh. Aren't you going to ask why? When you're ready. She pulled the quilt tighter. My mom's boyfriend, he wasn't nice. Dalton's hand tightened on his coffee cup. He hit you. Not a question. She nodded anyway. She didn't stop him, Joey said, voice small. She just let it happen. And when I told her it hurt, she said I was making it up. Said I was dramatic. That's on her, Dalton said, each word careful and hard. Not you, you hear me? That's on her. Joey looked at him then, eyes shining in the firelight. Do you got kids? Besides, she gestured vaguely upward, meaning Sarah, meaning the room, meaning everything. Just her. What happened? You said car accident. He stared at the fire, knew he had to say something. Couldn't say all of it. She was 16. We were driving back from Billings. Late. Car went off the road. True. All true. Just not complete. She died. I didn't. That's not your fault. His jaw clenched. If she only knew. How long ago? 18 years. January 15th. Joey was quiet, doing the math. That's 3 weeks from now. Yeah. Is that why you're so sad? The word hit him like a fist. Sad. Such a small word for such a big thing. He'd been sad for 18 years and called it other things. Responsible, careful, practical. But she saw right through it. Yeah, he said. I guess it is. She nodded, like that made sense. I'm sad too, most of the time. I know you are. Does it get better? He wanted to lie. Wanted to tell her yes, time heals, you'll be fine. But she deserved the truth. I don't know yet, he said. I'll let you know when I find out. They went to bed late. She asked if she could stay up to see if Santa came, and he didn't have the heart to tell her there wasn't one. So he said sure, and she fell asleep on the couch before 10. He carried her upstairs, light as kindling, tucked her into Sarah's bed. Standing in the doorway, he looked at her sleeping there, face relaxed, bruises fading yellow-green, breathing steady, and felt something crack open in his chest that had been sealed shut for 20 years. Merry Christmas, kid, he whispered. Downstairs, the phone rang. He looked at it. 10:30 on Christmas Eve. Nobody called him. Nobody had called him in years except Earl in the feed store. It rang 4 times, 5, 6. He didn't move. It stopped. In the silence after, his heart was pounding for no reason he could name. Or maybe he knew the reason and didn't want to look at it. Roads were opening. Storm was over. The world was coming back. And the world had questions about little girls who showed up beaten and barefoot in the snow. The phone rang again at 11. He still didn't answer. Christmas morning, he woke to the smell of something burning, stumbled downstairs to find Joey at the stove, spatula in hand, smoke pouring off a pan of what used to be pancakes. I wanted to make you breakfast, she said, face stricken. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... It's okay. He took the spatula, turned off the burner. That's real thoughtful. She'd set the table. 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 napkins, a folded piece of paper at his spot. He picked it up. A drawing in crayon she must have found in Sarah's room. The house, the barn, mountains in the background, stick figures, a tall one and a short one, standing in front. At the bottom, in careful print, Merry Christmas. I didn't have anything else to give you, she said. He looked at the drawing for a long time. Then he walked to the fridge and taped it up with a magnet, right next to the grocery list and a 20-year-old calendar he'd never thrown away. It's perfect, he said. He gave her new socks and gloves, practical things he'd grabbed from the closet, wrapped in newspaper. She put the gloves on immediately, held up her hands, smiled. Thank you, she said, and this time it didn't sound scared. Can I stay? She asked then, sudden. After the roads open? He felt the floor tilt under him. Roads will open soon. Gotta figure out what's right. Her face fell. But you're safe here long as you need, he added quickly. That's not the same. No, it wasn't. The phone rang again. They both looked at it. Aren't you going to answer? Joey asked. Probably just Earl, he lied. Then why don't you answer? Ain't in the mood. But she was watching him now, really watching, and he could see her putting pieces together. The phone that wouldn't stop, the way he flinched when it rang. The way he'd said gotta figure out what's right instead of yes, you can stay forever. That night, she woke from a nightmare and came downstairs. He wasn't in his room. She found him in the study, the door cracked, light on. She peeked through. He was at the desk, papers spread out. She couldn't read them from the doorway, but she saw the heavy black letters at the top of one. Last will and testament. He had his head in his hands. Looked like he was crying, or trying not to. Behind him, in the glass cabinet, she saw rifles. One of them not locked up, just there. She backed away from the door before he could see her, went back upstairs with her heart hammering. In Sarah's bed, her bed now, she pulled the covers up to her chin and stared at the ceiling. Outside, the wind was picking up again, another storm coming, maybe. The window rattled. She didn't know what a will was, not exactly. But she knew what guns were for, and she knew what sad men did when they got tired of being sad. She curled on her side and whispered into the dark, "Please don't, please." Nobody answered. Downstairs, the light in the study stayed on until morning. The woman from Child Services arrived the morning Joey learned what temporary meant. December 28th. Roads opened overnight. Dalton heard the plows go through at 4 a.m. and knew what was coming. He made the call at dawn while Joey was still asleep. Left it vague, found a kid, needs help, come when you can. The woman on the other end asked questions he didn't answer. Said someone would be out by noon. When Joey came down for breakfast, he was on the phone again. She stood in the doorway, listening to his low voice. Couldn't make out the words, just the tone. Careful, formal. Not the voice he used with her. He hung up, saw her watching. "We got company coming," he said. "Who?" "Lady from the state. She's going to ask you some questions." Joey went white. "About what?" "About where you came from, about what happened to you." "Are you sending me back?" "No." He said it firm. "But I can't just keep you without—" "Yes, you can." Her voice cracked high. "You're rich. You can do whatever you want." "It don't work like that. You're giving me away." Not a question. A fact. "Joey, you're just like her." The words came out like poison. "Just like my mom. Soon as it gets hard, soon as someone asks questions, you're done." "That ain't true." Then why'd you call them? Why can't you just—" She stopped, spun around, and ran. He heard her feet on the stairs, heard Sarah's door, her door, slam hard enough to rattle the frame. He stood in the kitchen, with his hands on the counter, head down, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Trying to remember when doing the right thing had ever felt this much like betrayal. Upstairs, he found her shoving things into a pillowcase. Sarah's old clothes, the gloves he'd given her for Christmas, the drawing she'd made, pulled down from the fridge and folded small. "What are you doing? What's it look like?" She didn't stop packing. "You don't gotta run." "Yeah, I do. Before you make me leave, I'm leaving first." He stepped into the room, saw what was under the bed, a backpack he'd never seen before. Old, stained, hers from before. She'd had it the whole time. He pulled it out. It was already packed. Had been packed since the day she got here. Spare clothes. Granola bars. Not from the box he'd given her. Older ones, stale. A plastic bag with a toothbrush and a comb. A pocket knife. $53 in crumpled bills. Everything she owned. Ready to go. "You were always planning to leave," he said, and his voice came out flat, dead. She stopped packing. Wouldn't look at him. "You never trusted me. Not once. You were always planning to make me." She spun on him now, eyes red. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know how this works? Temporary. That's all I ever am. People take me in and they're nice for a while, and then they get tired, and they call someone and I get moved. And it starts over and over." And her voice broke. She sat down hard on the bed, pillowcase clutched in both hands. "You were going to do the same thing," she whispered. "I knew you would eventually." "I wasn't—" He stopped. Couldn't finish the sentence, because what was he going to say? "I wasn't going to get rid of you. I was just going to kill myself in 3 weeks and leave you alone in this house?" He had nothing. No defense, no promise he could make that wasn't a lie. She looked up at him with those two old eyes. "I was right, wasn't I?" He opened his mouth, closed it. "That's what I thought." And she went back to packing. Linda Driscoll arrived at 11:30 in a county sedan with rust on the wheel wells and a briefcase that had seen better years. She was younger than Dalton expected. Early 40s maybe, tired eyes, sensible coat. Looked like someone who'd been doing this job too long and couldn't figure out how to stop. Mercer? Yeah. Linda Driscoll, Child Protective Services. She didn't offer her hand. "Can I come in?" He stepped back, led her into his kitchen. She looked around, took in the size of the house, the empty rooms, the one light on over the table. Her eyes landed on the coat hook, Joey's too big brown coat hanging there. Then she saw the aluminum foil tree on the table, the drawing on the fridge, and something in her face softened. "Is she here?" "Upstairs. I'd like to talk to her. Alone, if that's all right." It wasn't all right. Nothing about this was all right. but he nodded. Linda went upstairs. Dalton stood in the kitchen listening to floorboards creak. Heard Linda's voice, calm and professional. Heard Joey's voice, small and scared. Couldn't make out the words. 20 minutes later, Linda came back down, alone. She's terrified, Linda said, not unkind. You know that? Yeah. Do you know why? Because she thinks I'm giving her away. Linda set her briefcase on the table. Are you? No. Then why didn't you call us the night you found her? He looked at the floor. She was dying, wasn't thinking about protocols. I understand, but now we need to think about them. She pulled out a folder, flipped it open. I need to be straight with you, Mr. Mercer. This isn't how this works. You should have called us immediately. There are protocols, background checks, home studies, foster care certification. Oh, I know. Do you? Because right now, you're an uncertified guardian harboring a minor who was reported missing from... She caught herself. I can't discuss her case details with you, but there are people looking for her. His hands clenched. People who hurt her? I know. I saw the bruises. Linda's voice went quieter. I'm not the enemy here. I want what's best for her, but what's best isn't always what's easiest. What happens now? She can stay here temporarily while we investigate. But I need you to understand, this isn't permanent, not unless you go through the system. Apply for foster certification, maybe adoption, depending on... She trailed off. It's complicated. How long? For the investigation? 2 weeks minimum. For certification? Months, maybe longer. Dalton felt something in his chest tighten. Months. He had 3 weeks until January 15th. Until... Mr. Mercer, did you hear me? Yeah, I heard. Linda packed up her folder. At the door, she paused. For what it's worth. She's lucky you found her. Not everyone would have brought her inside. After she left, he stood in the kitchen listening to the silence. Upstairs, Joey's door was closed. He could feel her up there, alone, probably packed, and waiting for him to tell her to get out. He went to the staircase, stood at the bottom with his hand on the rail. Joey? No answer. She's gone. You can come down. Still nothing. He climbed the stairs, knocked on her door. I ain't sending you anywhere. You hear me? You're staying right here. Silence. Then, so quiet he almost missed it. You're lying. I'm not... She said temporary. I heard her. Temporary means I'm leaving. No, it means we got to do some paperwork, that's all. You're not going anywhere. You can't promise that. She was right. He couldn't. He pressed his forehead against the door. Joey, listen to me. Go away. He stood there for a full minute. Then he walked back downstairs. That evening, the kitchen felt different, colder. He made dinner, grilled cheese, tomato soup, and set 2 places at the table. She didn't come down. He ate alone, staring at her empty chair. At 8, he went upstairs again, knocked. I'm leaving food outside your door. No response. He set the plate down, went back to the kitchen. At 10, he went to bed, lay there in the dark, listening, didn't hear her leave the room, didn't hear her eat. Just silence, thick and wrong. Sometime after midnight, he got up to get water, walked downstairs in the dark, muscle memory guiding him, reached for the kitchen light switch. It was already off. He stopped, stood in the darkness, feeling it press against him. The kitchen light, the one light that had been on every night for 20 years. The one light Joey had started turning on every morning, claiming it, making it theirs. Off. He flipped the switch. Yellow light flooded the room, harsh and lonely. The plate he'd left for her sat outside her door, untouched. The house felt bigger now, emptier, like those 10 days of her being here had just been a dream, and now he was waking up to the reality he'd been living for 2 decades. Just him, just the dark, just the waiting. He turned the light off again, stood in his kitchen, in the black, and tried to remember why any of this mattered. The girl upstairs thought he was throwing her away. The state thought he was dangerous. And Sarah was still dead, and he was still the one who killed her. And in 3 weeks, none of this would matter anyway, because he'd be... The thought stopped. 3 weeks. Joey would still be here in 3 weeks. If he went through with it, if he did what he'd been planning since the day the guilt got too heavy, she'd wake up and find him, and... He put both hands on the counter, leaned his weight into it. Christ. He couldn't do that to her, but he couldn't promise to stay either. Couldn't promise anything past tomorrow, past tonight, past the next breath. He was trapped. By her. By this. By the fact that for the first time in 18 years, his death would hurt someone other than himself. Outside, wind scraped against the windows. The storm that had passed was coming back. Or maybe it had never really left. He went back upstairs without turning any lights on. In the dark hallway, he whispered, I'm sorry. If she heard him, She didn't answer. The worst storms are the ones that happen inside, when the sky is clear and there's nowhere left to hide. January 2nd, 4 days since Linda left, 4 days of silence thick enough to choke on. Dalton made coffee at 5 a.m. like always, set 2 cups on the counter like always, poured hers with too much milk like always. She didn't come down. He dumped it in the sink at 6. The routine kept going, but only his half. He cooked breakfast, eggs, toast, bacon, set 2 plates, ate alone, put her plate in the fridge. By evening, it was still there, untouched. He threw it out and tried not to think about the granola bar wrappers he'd found in her trash can when he went to check on her. She was eating, just not with him, just not anything he made. He knocked on her door twice a day. "Joey, you gotta eat something real." Silence. "There's food outside the door whenever you want it." Silence. "I ain't mad. You hear me? I ain't mad." In silence so complete he could hear his own heartbeat in it. He'd go back downstairs and stand in the kitchen, looking at the table she used to set. 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 napkins folded just so. Now it was back to 1, back to the way it had been for 20 years, like she'd never been here at all. Except she had. That was the thing. You couldn't unknow someone once you'd known them, couldn't unfeel someone once you'd felt them there. The house was the same as it had been before. Same rooms, same furniture, same walls. But now every empty space had her shape in it. The chair she'd sat in. The coat hook where her coat still hung, she hadn't taken it, hadn't left. The kitchen light she wasn't turning on anymore. January 3rd. Earl showed up with mail and news that the sheriff was asking questions. Who's the kid? Where'd she come from? Dalton sat at the table and told him about Linda, about temporary, about how Joey wouldn't come out of her room. Earl looked at him for a long time. "You call those CPS folks back?" "Left 3 messages." "What did you tell them?" "That I want to keep her, that I'll do whatever paperwork they need." "You tell her that?" Dalton looked at his coffee. "She won't listen." "Boy," Earl's voice went hard. "She's 9. You're the grown-up. Use your damn words." I can't. Can't or won't." Dalton's jaw tightened. "She thinks I'm throwing her away." Are you?" "No." "Then why you acting like you are?" Earl leaned forward. "You ain't been upstairs once except to knock and walk away. You ain't sat outside her door. You ain't told her nothing real. You're just waiting, like you do." "I don't know what to say." Try the truth." "The truth." "Right." The truth was he was supposed to die in 2 weeks, and he didn't know how to promise her forever when he'd only planned for 13 more days. The truth was, every time he looked at that rifle in the study, he felt relief and guilt in equal measure. The truth was, he'd pulled the will back out last night and added a line leaving everything to her when he was gone. Made sure she'd be taken care of. Made sure his death wouldn't leave her with nothing. He couldn't tell Earl that. Couldn't tell anyone that. "I'll talk to her," he said, empty. Earl stood. "You better, before you lose her for real." After Earl left, Dalton sat in the kitchen until the sun went down. Tried to find words. Came up empty. January 5th, morning, mail came. Envelope from Linda. Official letterhead. He opened it at the kitchen table. Foster care application. Background check authorization. Home study scheduling form. Medical examination consent. And a letter. "Miss Mercer, per our conversation, the child's biological mother has been located and notified. She has expressed interest in reunification now that her domestic situation has stabilized. A family court hearing has been scheduled for January 22nd to determine placement. You may attend if you wish to petition for custody, but please understand that biological parents maintain primacy in these cases unless parental rights are formally terminated. The child may remain in your care temporarily pending the hearing. Regards, Linda Driscoll, MSW." He read it 3 times. The words didn't change. Biological mother. Reunification. Temporarily. He heard feet on the stairs. Looked up. Joey stood in the doorway wearing one of Sarah's old sweatshirts. Too big, hanging off one shoulder. She looked smaller than she had a week ago. Paler, like something was eating her from the inside. "What's that?" Her voice was rough from not using it. He should have hidden it. Should have thrown it away. But his hands were frozen on the paper. "Letter from the state." She came closer, slow, wary, saw the letterhead. "What's it say?" He couldn't lie to her, couldn't do that again. "They found your mom." Joey went white, gripped the back of the chair. "She wants you back." "No." "There's a hearing." "No." Louder now. "I'm not going back." "I know. You're gonna what?" Her voice cracked high. "Fight for me? You can't even talk to me. You can't even..." She grabbed the letter out of his hands, read it herself. He watched her face change as she got to the word temporarily. So you were giving me to someone else. She looked up at him with eyes that were all hurt. Just not her. Someone better. Someone who actually wants. That ain't what. Then what? She threw the letter at him. What is this? What am I doing here if it's temporary? Why'd you even bring me inside if you were just gonna. I'm trying to do this right. His voice came out harder than he meant. I'm trying to follow the rules so you don't get taken away. I don't care about rules. I care about. She stopped, swallowed. I thought you wanted me here. I do. Liar. The word hit him like a fist. You don't want me? You just feel sorry for me, or guilty. Like I'm some kind of. Her voice broke. I'm not your dead daughter. I can't fix whatever's broken in you, and I'm tired of trying. She turned to leave. Joey, my name's Jolene. She spun back, tears on her face now. You don't even call me by my real name. You just use the nickname like I'm some stray you picked up. That ain't. Where the hell you think you're going? He said, but it came out wrong, came out angry when he meant it scared. She was already moving, running for the stairs. It's 20 below. I don't care. She stopped at the bottom of the staircase. Turned. I'd rather freeze than wait for you to throw me away. Then she was gone, up the stairs. Her door slammed. He stood in the kitchen with the letter at his feet and tried to remember how to breathe. He found her at the gate, same place he'd found her the first time. 20 yards from the road, standing in snow up to her knees, wearing socks and Sarah's sweatshirt and nothing else, no coat, no boots. Like she'd just walked out into winter without thinking, or maybe thinking too much. She wasn't running this time. Just standing there, shaking, arms wrapped around herself. He grabbed her, not gentle, picked her up. She fought him, fists against his chest, kicking, making sounds that weren't quite words. Let me go. Let me. Stop it. Stop. I hate you. She was crying now, hard, ugly crying. I hate you. I hate you. I hate. He carried her back to the house. She went limp halfway there, just sobbed against his coat. He got her inside, set her on the couch, wrapped her in every blanket he could find. Her lips were blue, feet purple again. 18 days of healing undone in 5 minutes of cold. He knelt in front of her. What the hell were you thinking? I wasn't. She wouldn't look at him. I just wanted it to stop hurting. The words cut through him like wire. Joey, you don't want me here. Just say it. I can take it. I've heard it before. That ain't true. Then why? She looked at him now. Why'd you call them? Why can't you just keep me? He sat back on his heels, felt something in him crack open. Because I don't know how to promise you tomorrow when I wasn't planning on being here for it. She went still. What? He stood, walked to the window, couldn't look at her while he said it. January 15th. That's Sarah's anniversary. Day she died. I've been planning something for that day. Silence behind him. Then, the will. Yeah. And the gun. Yeah. You were gonna. Her voice was so small. You were gonna kill yourself. He closed his eyes. Yeah. When? 2 weeks from now. So that's why. Her voice wasn't angry anymore, just empty. That's why you can't promise to keep me, because you're leaving anyway. He turned to look at her. She was staring at the floor, tears dripping off her chin onto the blanket. I don't know how not to, he said, and his voice came out broken. I've been waiting to die for 18 years. Only thing that kept me going was knowing I could stop anytime I wanted. And then you showed up and I ruined your plan. No, you gave me a reason to stay. But I don't. He put a hand over his face. I don't know if that's enough. She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was different, harder. Why do you want to die? Because I killed her. The car accident. Wasn't an accident. The words came out like glass. I fell asleep, driving back from Billings. 2 a.m, been awake for 20 hours. I fell asleep and this car went off the road. And Sarah, his throat closed. She didn't die right away. She was conscious. She looked at me and said, Dad, and then she stopped breathing and I couldn't fix it. Joey's face was wet, but she wasn't making any sound. I walked away without a scratch, he said. Not one. And she died in a ditch because I couldn't stay awake. Because I was too stubborn to pull over. His voice broke. Because I chose cattle prices over my daughter's life. Did you tell anyone? My wife knew, didn't have to tell her. She looked at me at the funeral and I saw it in her eyes. She knew. Left me 6 months later. Never said it out loud, but we both knew. And she was right. I killed our daughter. I don't deserve. That's not why you want to die. He stopped, looked at her. Joey stood up, blanket falling off her shoulders. That's not why. Yes, it is. No. She took a step toward him. You don't want to die because you killed her. You want to die because you lived. The words hit him like a freight train. You want to die because every morning you wake up and she doesn't, because you get to drink coffee and check cows and watch the sun come up and she never will. You want to die because you think breathing is stealing something from her. He couldn't speak, couldn't move. But you're wrong, Joey said, and her voice was steady now, certain. You're wrong because dying won't bring her back. It'll just make you both gone. And then nobody wins. I don't deserve to, neither do I. The words exploded out of her. I don't deserve a safe house and food and someone who makes hot chocolate instead of coffee because he noticed I didn't like it. I don't deserve any of this, but you gave it to me anyway. She crossed the room, stood right in front of him. If you die, where do I go? The question stopped everything. If you die, she said again, quieter, I go back to her, to my mom, to the boyfriend, to all of it. And then, what was the point? What was the point of saving me if you're just going to leave me anyway? He knelt down, eye level with her. Joey, maybe you're sad because you're supposed to save someone this time. Her eyes were clear now, sure. Maybe Sarah died, so you could find me. Maybe that's how it works. Maybe you don't get to fix the old stuff. Maybe you just get to do better with the new stuff. I don't know if I can. You already are. She took his hands. You picked me up when I was dying. You put bandages on my feet. You made me breakfast every morning, even when I wouldn't eat it. You gave me Sarah's room. You gave me her coat hook. Her voice cracked. You're the first person who ever acted like I was worth staying for. You are. Then stay. Simple. Direct. Please. Just stay. He looked at her hands in his. Small, cold, real. I'm scared, he said. Me too. I don't know how to be somebody's dad again. I don't know how to be somebody's kid. She squeezed his hands. We can figure it out. What if I fail you? Then you fail. But at least you tried. At least you didn't just... Her voice went hard. At least you didn't quit. He pulled her into a hug. Felt her arms go around his neck. Felt her crying into his shoulder. Felt himself crying into her hair. They stayed like that for a long time. Two broken people holding onto each other in a house that had been empty for 20 years and was finally, not. When they pulled apart, she looked at him with red eyes. Are you still going to do it? On the 15th? No. The word came out certain, true. No, I ain't. Promise? Promise. Say it. Say you'll stay. I'll stay. His voice cracked. I'll stay, Joey. I'll stay. She made him go to the study with her, made him take the will out of the desk and put it in the safe, made him lock the rifle cabinet and give her the key, put it on a chain around her neck. Just for now, she said, till you're sure. He nodded. That night, they sat at the kitchen table and ate leftover stew that was 3 days old and probably bad, but neither of them cared. She turned the kitchen light back on before they sat down. Didn't say anything about it, just pulled the chain and it clicked on and the room went from dark to yellow and warm. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For calling the state. For making you think I was giving you away. For all of it. I'm sorry, too, for running, for the things I said. You weren't wrong. Yeah, I was. She looked at him across the table. You do want me here. I just couldn't believe it. Believe it? She smiled. Small, but real. First one in days. Outside, the wind had stopped. The storm, the real one, the one inside, had passed. They still had the hearing to face. Still had her mother to deal with. Still had months of paperwork and questions and doubt. But tonight, the kitchen light was on. And they were both still there. And that was enough. Forgiveness is a thing you can't ask for, but sometimes if you're quiet enough, you hear it anyway. Morning came slow. Dalton woke to gray light through the window and lay there listening to the house. Heard Joey moving around downstairs, water running, cabinets opening, the click of the stove igniting. She was making breakfast. He got dressed and went down. Found her at the stove with a spatula, concentrating hard on scrambled eggs that were only slightly burned. Coffee was already made, 2 cups on the counter, hers with milk, his black. Morning, he said. She looked over her shoulder. I didn't know if you wanted... It's good, thank you. They ate at the table without saying much. The silence wasn't empty this time, just full of things they didn't have words for yet. Earl showed up mid-morning with a thermos of coffee and the paper from town. He took one look at them, Dalton's eyes still red. Joey, wearing the rifle key around her neck like a saint's medal, and nodded like he understood everything, without asking. You two look like you've been through it, was all he said. Yeah, Dalton said. Earl pulled out a chair, sat. You all right? Getting there. Earl looked at Joey. How about you, little one? Okay, I guess. You guess. Earl smiled, gentle. That's honest? I like honest. He finished his coffee and stood. Come on, girl. Let's go teach you something useful while your dad here figures his head out. Joey looked at Dalton. He nodded. Go on. They went to the barn, and Dalton watched them through the kitchen window. Earl showing her how to coil rope proper, how to mend tack, how to read a cow's body language. Patient, kind. Giving Dalton space to be alone without being alone, he went upstairs, stood outside Sarah's door, Joey's door, for a full minute before opening it. The room was different now. Joey's drawings, taped to the walls next to Sarah's old posters, her clothes in the drawers, her smell, strawberry shampoo and something else, something alive, mixing with the dust and old perfume that had been there for 20 years. He sat on the bed, put his face in his hands. Sarah, he said to the empty room, I don't know if you can hear me. Don't know if there's anything after or if you're just gone. But if you're somewhere, I need you to know I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. His voice cracked. I killed you. I know that. I've known it every day for 18 years. And I was gonna... He couldn't finish, took a breath. But there's this kid now, and she needs me. And I think maybe I need her too. Silence answered him, just wind against the window and his own breathing. I'm not trying to replace you. I couldn't, but I gotta live now. I gotta try. And I don't know if that means I'm betraying you or honoring you or just... He stopped. I don't know. I just know I can't keep waiting to die. He looked around the room, at Joey's things mixed with Sarah's, at the life growing in the space where death had lived. I hope that's okay, he whispered. I hope wherever you are, you understand. The room stayed quiet, but the quiet felt different, not empty, not condemning, just quiet, like permission. He stood, wiped his eyes, went back downstairs. That evening, after Earl left and Joey was watching TV, Dalton went to the study. The room he'd been planning his death in, the desk where he'd written the will, updated it, changed it again. The cabinet where the rifles were locked now, key around Joey's neck. He opened the bottom drawer, pulled out the photo album he'd looked at exactly once in 18 years. The night of the funeral, drunk, crying, trying to find Sarah's face one more time before the guilt buried him completely. Brown leather, cracked spine, gold letters on the cover, Our Family. He brought it to the kitchen, set it on the table. Joey? She came in, cautious, saw the album. What's that? Pictures of Sarah. I thought... He cleared his throat. I thought maybe you'd want to see. She sat down slow. He opened the album. First page. Sarah as a baby, pink blanket, eyes closed. Next page. Sarah. At 2, covered in birthday cake. Page after page, Sarah growing up. School pictures. Christmas mornings, the ranch in summer, Sarah on her first horse, Sarah with braces. Sarah at 16, the last picture, standing by the truck that would kill her a week later. Joey touched the photos gentle, like they might break. She's pretty. Yeah, she was. She looks happy. Most of the time. Yeah. She was a good kid. Funny, tough. Used to give me hell about everything. He almost smiled. You remind me of her. Not just the blonde hair, the way you stand up for yourself, the way you don't take any shit. Joey looked at him. Is that why you saved me? Because I reminded you of her? He thought about lying, decided against it. Maybe at first, but that's not why you're still here. Why am I? Because you should be. He closed the album. Because when I look at you, I don't just see what I lost. I see what I got. A second chance I don't deserve, but I'm taking anyway. She was quiet for a while. Then, do you think she'd be mad that I'm in her room using her stuff? He looked at the album, at Sarah's face in the last photo. 16 and smiling and 3 days from dead. No, he said and meant it. I think she'd be glad someone's using it. I think she'd like you. Really? Really? You're both stubborn as hell. Joey smiled. Small, but there. Can I see these again sometime? Anytime you want. They're as much yours now as they are mine. After she went to bed, he sat at the kitchen table with the phone in his hand. Stared at it for 10 minutes before dialing. Linda Driscoll answered on the third ring. Hello? This is Dalton Mercer. Mr. Mercer, I was hoping you'd call. I want to keep her, Joey. Jolene. Whatever the state calls her. I want to keep her. I know, you said that in your messages. No, you don't understand. He gripped the phone tighter. I'm ready to do whatever you need. Foster certification, home study, background checks, adoption paperwork, whatever it takes. That little girl's not going anywhere if I gotta say. Silence on the other end. Then, okay. Okay? I'll start the paperwork tomorrow, but you need to understand, the hearing's still happening. Her mother has rights. This won't be easy. I don't care if it's easy. I care if it's possible. It's possible. Hard, but possible. Linda's voice softened. For what it's worth, Mr. Mercer, I think you're doing the right thing. I hope so. Be at the courthouse January 22nd, 9 a.m. Bring everything we talked about. And bring Joey. The judge will want to talk to her. We'll be there. He hung up, sat in the kitchen with the light on, and tried to imagine walking into a courtroom and fighting for the right to be someone's father again. Tried to imagine losing. Tried to imagine winning. Couldn't picture either one. Could only picture tomorrow. And the day after, and the day after that. One day at a time. That's all he had. All anyone had, really. Upstairs, Joey's door was cracked open. He climbed the stairs quiet, looked in. She was asleep, rifle key glinting on the chain around her neck. Her hand was curled under her chin. She looked small, safe, home. He pulled the door almost closed, left it cracked the way she liked it, left the hallway light on. In his own room, he lay in bed and thought about January 15th. 4 days away now. The day he'd been circling on the calendar for 18 years. The day he'd planned to end it. He'd make it through now. He knew that. Not because the guilt was gone. It wasn't, might never be. But because Joey needed him to. Because living for someone else was easier than living for yourself. Because sometimes the best reason to stay alive was knowing someone would cry if you didn't. He closed his eyes. For the first time in 2 decades, he fell asleep planning for next week instead of planning for never. Outside, the wind died down. The stars came out, cold and bright and infinite. The house settled into itself, warm and quiet. 2 lives breathing under the same roof. Storm passed, just like Earl said it would. The law showed up at dawn with a court order. But it hadn't counted on a man who'd already decided what he was willing to lose. January 15th came and went. Dalton woke up that morning with his heart pounding, expecting, what, ghosts? Judgment? The pull toward the rifle cabinet? But Joey was already downstairs making coffee badly, and when he came into the kitchen, she looked at him like she was checking to make sure he was real. You're still here, she said. Yeah. He poured himself a cup of her terrible coffee. I'm still here. They spent the day doing nothing important. Fed the cattle, mended fence. She named another calf. Clover had a brother now. Apparently his name was Biscuit, and that was that. They ate dinner at the table with the light on, and the aluminum foil tree still sitting there from Christmas, slightly bent, still beautiful in its own broken way. That night, he went to bed and slept through until morning. 18 years of waiting for this day to kill him, and it passed like any other. Maybe quieter. Maybe better. The real test came a week later. January 22nd, courthouse day. Dalton put on a suit he hadn't worn since his wife's funeral. Too tight in the shoulders now. Joey wore a dress Linda had dropped off. Blue, clean, too big in the waist but belted tight. They looked like 2 people trying to be something they weren't. Which was basically true. In the truck on the way to town, Joey was quiet, staring out the window at fields going by. He wanted to say something comforting, something dad-like, but all the words felt wrong in his mouth. Whatever happens today, he started. Don't. Her voice was small. Don't make promises you can't keep. Fair enough. The courthouse was an old brick building in the center of Choteau, 2 stories, county seal over the door. They walked up the steps together. Linda met them in the lobby. You ready? She asked Dalton. No, but I'm here. That's all we can ask. She looked at Joey. How you doing, sweetheart? Joey shrugged. They went into the courtroom. Small room, wood paneling, Montana state flag in the corner, judge's bench up high, a few rows of seats. And in the front row, a woman with blonde hair going gray and a face that looked like Joey's would in 30 years if the world kept hitting her the same way. Joey stopped walking, grabbed Dalton's hand so hard her nails dug in. That's her, she whispered. The woman, Joey's mother, looked over. Her eyes went to Joey, then to Dalton's hand holding hers, then back to Joey's face. Something crossed her expression. Guilt, maybe. Or just recognition that she'd lost already, and was here anyway, because the court said she had to be. All rise. The hearing was supposed to be simple. Linda explained it in whispers before the judge came in. Mother petitioning for return of custody. Dalton petitioning for foster placement pending adoption. Judge would interview Joey, review case files, make a determination. Simple. Except Joey's mother had a lawyer, public defender, looked about 12 years old and exhausted. And the lawyer had questions. Mr. Mercer, you found the child on your property December 18th, is that correct? Yes. And you didn't report it to authorities until December 28th? Roads were closed? For 10 days? Dalton's jaw tightened. Storm was bad, and she needed medical attention first. Medical attention you provided yourself, without professional help? She was hypothermic. Frostbite. I did what I had to. Mercer, Are you aware that failure to report a found child is— Objection, Linda cut in. Mr. Mercer acted in good faith during a weather emergency. This line of questioning is sustained. The judge, older woman, gray hair, reading glasses, looked at the public defender. Move on, counselor. The questions kept coming. Why didn't he call an ambulance? Why didn't he take her to the hospital when roads opened? Why did he keep her isolated? Was he aware of proper procedures? Dalton answered each one, kept his voice level, kept his hands from shaking, felt Joey watching him from where she sat with Linda. Then it was the mother's turn. Her name was Crystal Hartman. She cried when they asked about Joey, said she'd made mistakes, said her boyfriend was in jail now, said she'd been in counseling, said she wanted her daughter back. I love her, Crystal said, tears streaming. I know I messed up, but she's my baby. She belongs with me. Joey made a sound, not loud, just a small noise in her throat like she'd been punched. The judge looked at her. Jolene, is there something you want to say? Joey stood up, looked at her mother, looked at Dalton, looked at the judge. I don't want to go back, she said, voice steady, clear. She let him hurt me for 2 years. And when I told her, she said I was lying. She chose him over me, every time. Crystal was shaking her head. Baby, that's not— Don't call me that. Joey's voice went hard. You don't get to call me that anymore. The judge held up a hand. Mrs. Hartman, please. I want to stay with Dalton, Joey said. He's— Her voice cracked. He's the first person who ever acted like I mattered. Dalton's throat closed. The judge wrote something down. Thank you, Jolene. You can sit. Joey sat, wiped her eyes fast. Mr. Mercer, the judge said, approach the bench. He walked up. The judge looked at him over her reading glasses. Mr. Mercer, I've reviewed the case file. Ms. Driscoll speaks highly of you. The child clearly wants to stay with you, but I have concerns. Yes, ma'am. You're a single man, 61 years old, no prior foster care experience, no family support system that I can see. You have significant wealth, but you live alone on a remote property. Can you tell me why you think you're equipped to raise a traumatized 9-year-old girl? He looked back at Joey. She was watching him with her whole heart in her eyes. I can't tell you I'm equipped, he said. I don't know if I am. What I can tell you is I'm willing. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to try. I'm willing to fail and get back up and try again. That's admirable. But willingness isn't always enough. No, ma'am, but it's what I got. That in a house with enough rooms for her to have her own space. Land where she can breathe, quiet when she needs it, and— His voice caught. And a promise that as long as I'm alive, she'll have a place to come home to. The judge studied him for a long moment. Then she looked at Joey, back at Crystal, who was crying quietly in her seat, back at Dalton. Here's my ruling, she said. Temporary custody to Mr. Mercer, pending completion of foster certification, supervised visitation for Mrs. Hartman, twice monthly, location to be determined by Ms. Driscoll. We'll reconvene in 6 months to evaluate permanent placement. Crystal let out a sob. Her lawyer put a hand on her arm. Mrs. Hartman, the judge said, not unkindly, you have an opportunity here to prove you've changed. Take it seriously, use the visitation time, show up, do the work. Crystal nodded, couldn't speak. Mr. Mercer, understand this is not adoption. Not yet. You'll be under scrutiny. Home visits, progress reports. Any concerns and we're back here immediately. Are we clear? Yes, ma'am. Good. The judge banged her gavel once. We're adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Joey stood on the steps shaking. Not from cold, from everything. Dalton knelt down in front of her, right there on the courthouse steps with people walking by, and Linda standing back, giving them space. He took Joey's hands in his. Listen to me, he said. I know that was scary. I know this ain't over. I know we got 6 months of them watching us and your mom coming around and everything being uncertain. What if they change their minds? What if— Then we fight again, and as many times as it takes. He squeezed her hands. Joey, Jolene, whatever you want to be called. You need to hear this. She looked at him, eyes wet. Whatever happens in 6 months or 6 years or 60 years, you got a home with me, always. This light stays on. This door stays unlocked. You are mine, and I am yours, and no judge can change that. You hear me? You promise? I promise. On my daughter's memory, on everything I got left, I promise. She threw her arms around his neck. He stood up, lifting her with him, felt her crying into his shoulder. Felt himself crying too, didn't care who saw. I love you, she said into his coat. First time either of them had said it. I love you too, kid. His voice broke. I love you too. He set her down. She kept hold of his hand. They walked to the truck together. Linda caught up with them, pressed some papers into Dalton's hand. Foster certification paperwork. Get started on it. I'll be by next week for the first home visit. We'll be ready. I know you will. And she smiled at Joey. You did good in there. I'm proud of you. Joey just nodded, still holding Dalton's hand. In the truck driving home, she was quiet for a long time. Then, did you mean it, what you said on the steps? Every word. Even the I love you part? Especially that part. She looked out the window. Montana rolling by, fields and fences and sky. I never had a dad before. Not a real one. You do now. Is it okay if I call you that? Dad? His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Throat went tight. Yeah, it's okay. Okay. She smiled then, real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. Dad? The word hit him like grace. They drove home in comfortable silence. When they pulled up to the house, the kitchen light was on. They'd left it that way this morning. One yellow point of light against the afternoon sky. Home. They went inside together. Spring came to Montana the way grace comes to broken people. Slow, quiet, and impossible to see until you're standing in it. Late March. Snow melting off the fields in patches, leaving the ground black and muddy and alive. Meadowlarks were back, singing on the fence posts. Creek running high with snowmelt. The kind of morning that made you believe in starting over. Dalton came downstairs to the smell of coffee. Good coffee this time. She'd been practicing for 3 months. Joey stood at the stove in one of his old flannel shirts, sleeves rolled up, making pancakes that were only slightly burned. Morning, she said, not looking up from the griddle. Morning. They'd gotten the letter from Linda yesterday. Foster certification approved. Background check clear. Home study passed. 6-month review hearing scheduled for July. But Linda said not to worry. Judge was pleased with the progress. Crystal had shown up to exactly 2 visits, then stopped. Signed relinquishment papers last week. Said Joey deserved better than she could give. It was over. Almost. Joey flipped a pancake. You want to do the thing? What thing? The coffee thing. Together. He smiled. Yeah, okay. They stood side by side at the counter. He poured. She added milk to hers. They'd done this every morning for a month now. Small ritual. Proof of permanence. Proof they were real. She pulled the chain on the kitchen light even though dawn was coming in through the window. The brass fixture clicked on yellow and warm, and she looked up at it like she always did. What? He asked. Nothing. Just, I like it on. Me too. They sat at the table with their pancakes. The aluminum foil tree was gone now, but the drawing she'd made Christmas morning was still on the fridge, corners curling, tape yellowing. Next to it, a school photo from last week. Joey, in a blue sweater, gap-toothed smile, hair brushed neat, first school photo of her life. After breakfast, she grabbed her coat from the hook by the door, blue Carhartt, her size now, already getting worn in the elbows from barn work. His brown one hung next to it, 2 coats side by side, both coming on, both going off, both marking time and presence and belonging. She stopped with her hand on the coat. Dad? The word still hit him every time. Yeah? Do you still think about her, Sarah? Every day. Does it hurt? Yeah, but different now. How? He came over, stood next to her looking at the 2 coats. Used to hurt like dying, now hurts like living. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. Do you think she'd like me? He'd answered this before, but she needed to hear it again. Kids were like that. Yeah, I do. I think you 2 would have drove me crazy together. Joey smiled. Good crazy? The best kind. They walked out to the barn to check on Clover and Biscuit. The calves were bigger now, sturdy on their legs, faces funny and sweet. Joey fed them hay while Dalton mucked stalls. Easy work, quiet work. The kind that let your mind wander to good places instead of dark ones. On the way back to the house, she asked it again. The question she asked every few weeks, testing to make sure the answer hadn't changed. I'm staying, right? Forever? He stopped walking, looked down at her. Yeah, kid. Forever. And you promise? I promise. He paused. Joey, Jolene, you gotta know something. I know we got that hearing in July. I know there's paperwork and judges and people who gotta sign off. But none of that changes what's true. What's true? You're my daughter. I'm your dad. That's not temporary. That's not conditional. That's just fact. She looked up at him with eyes that were still too old but getting younger every day. Even if something happens, even then, nothing's gonna change it. He knelt down, snow mud soaking into his jeans. You asked me once if I was dying, remember? Yeah. I said not today, but I should have said something else. What? I should have said not ever, 'cause that's what happened. I was dying before you got here. Been dying for 18 years. And then you showed up and his voice caught. You saved me. You know that? You saved my life. Tears on her face now. You saved mine first. Maybe we saved each other. She threw her arms around his neck. He held her there, in the mud, in the melting snow, in the sound of meadowlarks singing, and, for the first time, since Sarah died, the guilt didn't feel like drowning. It felt like something he could carry, something that made him stronger instead of breaking him. I love you, Dad, she whispered. I love you too, daughter. They stood up, walked back to the house hand in hand. At the porch, she looked back at the fields, at the mountains, at the sky going pale blue with morning. It's pretty here, she said. Yeah, it is. I'm glad I didn't freeze. He almost laughed. Me too. You glad you picked me up? Best thing I ever did. Inside, they took their coats off, hung them side by side on the hook. The house smelled like coffee and pancakes and life. Upstairs, a radio was playing soft. She'd started leaving it on in her room, said the quiet was too loud sometimes. He understood that. That evening, after dinner, after dishes, after she'd gone upstairs to do homework, Dalton stood at the kitchen window looking out at the ranch. 12,000 acres of Montana land. His grandfather's, his father's, his, and someday, if she wanted it, Joey's. The sun was setting, painting the snow patches gold. The mountains went purple in the distance. Beauty that didn't care if you noticed it or not, just kept being beautiful anyway. He heard her feet on the stairs, turned. She stood in the doorway in pajamas, hair wet from the shower, rifle key still on the chain around her neck. She hadn't taken it off in 3 months. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just thinking. About what? About how lucky I am. She came over, stood next to him at the window. They looked out together at the land going dark, the first stars coming out. We both are, she said. Lucky, I mean. Yeah, we are. Outside, 200 yards down the drive, a truck passed on the county road. Its headlights swept across the house, lighting up the kitchen window for just a second, long enough to see. 2 shadows standing together in the yellow light, a man and a girl, a father and a daughter. Not alone, not anymore, never again.